Hey guys, how we doing? I hope everybody is well. Thanks for joining me on this Saturday morning for some more stories right here on Thailand Bound. Now, I've got 4 viewers' stories that have been sent in to me. 3 of them are brand new. That means they've never been read out on this channel before. The 4th story I first read out in 2021, but it is a good story. If you're a regular to my channel and you listen to these stories every Saturday, why not consider becoming a member? Members get early access to videos, and we have 2 members live streams every month. They're a lot of fun. Okay, let's crack on with these 4 stories today. This is the first of 4.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Let me start with a warning. My stories contain details, as any good story should, and if your listeners are the down-to-business kind of guys, maybe skip this one. I have notes filed on my phone where I record incidents and events as they happen, which later helps me remember, and sometimes I get to realise why something happened the way it did, even if very late. Today's stories will be more of a general detailed advice, mostly for some fellow mongers that I shall call special tourists. Mongers who wander around in large groups around Pattaya and who are from a large country only 3 hours flight time from Bangkok. I have witnessed several incidents and actions that involve these people mentioned, and at times I was on the receiving end of their behaviour. I was thinking about the approach to this sensitive subject, hence the long wait time for this email, but these are the things that we men, regardless of race, should be aware of when mongering in Thailand. That being said, with some reservations, let us begin. During one of my visits in 2022, I was walking along the narrow sidewalk on the east side of Pattaya Beach Road. I saw one of these special tourist mongers approaching, so I stepped slightly aside to give him room, expecting the same from him. Instead, he walked straight into me, shoulder checking me as I wasn't there. Instinctively, I pushed him away and he stumbled into a pole. Words were exchanged, but a shopkeeper who saw everything immediately scolded him, saying, "You bad man, he gave you room, you rude man." So here is advice number 1. You are not alone walking on Pattaya's tight sidewalks. Be mindful of others and show the same respect you expect in return. If you are rude, you risk being treated the same way. Another time, as I was riding a Songtel taxi on my way to Soi 6, the speed dropped to walking space while the driver started leaning on the horn. I leaned out the side and saw 2 of these special tourist mongers walking slowly along parked cars in the middle of the lane, chatting, even though the sidewalk was on the other side completely empty. The traffic was forced to crawl because of them. Eventually, an opening appeared on the right and the truck moved around them at speed. One of the regular tourists standing on the back platform lashed out and kicked one of them, knocking him to the ground, while shouting something that sounded Dutch. I actually felt a bit satisfied, even though I'm not a vindictive person. Rudeness brings rudeness. Advice number 2, have some awareness of your surroundings. You are not the most important person in the world. Now, let's talk about body odour. One of my favourite things is a head and shoulders massage. 1 hour of absolute bliss in an air-conditioned room after being out in the heat. On one occasion, my senses were assaulted by a strong body odour coming from the person in the next cubicle. We were separated only by curtains, but the air conditioning was pushing his smell across the room. I had to cut my sessions short as I was getting a headache from it. Let me expand on that. As humans, we sweat in hot temperatures. It's natural and normal. I'm an ex-military man and have trained in all conditions. I know the difference between a normal hot day sweat and someone who hasn't washed properly for days or even weeks. This smell was old, possibly weeks old. The poor massage lady dealing with him must have been miserable. Advice number 3, shower often in Pattaya. 2 or even 3 showers a day is normal. Thais and many East and Southeast Asians generally do not have strong body odour due to genetics and also because of their hygiene habits. In simple terms, they stay clean. You should too. While we are on grooming, Pattaya has plenty of nail salons. Spend a few $100 and get a manicure or a pedicure, especially if you wear sandals or get foot massages. Don't walk around with dirty nails or unkept feet. Get a haircut, shave, brush your teeth, and use mouthwash. Poor hygiene sends a message that you don't care about yourself, so why should anybody else? Another incident happened in a small cheap restaurant. As I sat down for lunch, two of these special tourists came in. The server went to them first as they arrived before me. They ordered while barely looking at her, waving their hands in a dismissive way. You could see she was offended. When she came to me, I made eye contact, used what little Thai I know to say please, then ordered in English and finished with a thank you in Thai. I smiled and kept it polite while I waited. I sat quietly while the other two were loud and obnoxious. Guess whose food came first? The server even apologized for the noise from the other table. They rushed their food, paid with coins, and left no tip. I felt embarrassed for them. I left a tip, not to cover them, but because the lady deserved it. Advice number 4, tip. You don't have to go over the top, but show some appreciation and stop being loud and obnoxious. That behavior might work where you come from, but not here. Speaking of being cheap, I once saw 4 of these tourist mongers in a bar on Soi 8 trying to convince a bar girl with a lower price because they would give her volume business. They were also sharing one beer between the 4 of them and hadn't bought her a drink. I was talking to a girl at my table who was already on her second drink. I asked her what was going on and confirmed it was with the mama-san. I then told her to bring the girl over to our table and I ordered 4 beers for the group. I went over, shook their hands, had a drink with them, asked where they were from and kept things friendly. While they were distracted with the free beers, the girl joined us. Eventually, they left thinking we were all friends. Advice number 5. What makes anyone think a single girl would agree to go with 4 men? Were they planning to take turns, watch, or what? It makes no sense, not to mention they were soaked in sweat. Stop group hunting. It's 1 guy and 1 girl, maybe 2 if you can afford it, but not the other way round. Occasionally, 2 guys and 1 girl might happen, but only if she chooses it. 4 to 1 is ridiculous. I have also heard of situations where girls are tricked into rooms with multiple men. That is unacceptable, criminal behavior. If you wonder why you get refused service before even saying hello, it is because of behavior like that. Lastly, I once met a ladyboy with serious bruising on her face and body. She had been attacked by the customer after he discovered the truth. If you are unsure, ask first. If you're not comfortable, walk away. Violence is never the answer. So as soon as I started reading this email that he sent me, I knew straight away who he was talking about, the kind of people he's talking about. You've got to be very, very politically correct, or else people start calling you a lefty and all sorts of things. But it's true what he's saying. I mean, I've been in Pattaya, and those guys, they just don't move out the way. They're rude, they're obnoxious. I remember one time I was riding my scooter along Sukhumvit Road. I used to live in Soi 8, opposite 11, where a lot of them stayed. And there were a bunch of about 7 or 8 of them standing in the road trying to wave us taxi down. And none of the taxis would stop. And I headed straight for them, thinking they were going to move out the way, because they were literally in the middle of the road, not on the side of the road. And I had to brake really hard to the point that my tyres made a screeching noise, and they still didn't move. They just waved me on. So yeah, they can be very, very obnoxious. I know exactly who he's talking about. Okay, right. Let's jump into story number 2. I hope you are well, and I'd like to thank you for the effort you make on your channel. Maybe we start by saying these are the events of a well-researched and long-time listener of the channel who lost all sense very quickly on his first trip to Thailand. I'm 48, I live in one of the middle counties in the UK, and am remarried with 3 children, all away at university. The marriage is a solid one, but perhaps most convenient with my wife, a director of a beauty company that takes up most of her attention. I've been a visitor to Working Ladies since going to Amsterdam with a group of older friends as an 18-year-old in the 90s. Female long-term relationships have always been normal, but I enjoy the variation of ladies and the aerobics one can get almost immediately with the right information to hand, in addition to a relationship. Over the last 10 years or so, I've found I prefer the more relaxed massage type visit, the slower paced essential build up to the final act, as it were. I found full aerobics can be offered at times in these establishments, usually at a Chinese place, but Thai massages are by far the best, maybe more expensive, but worth it. January last year, I visited one particular Thai massage place and one lady in particular. Her name was Da, 29 years old, long black hair, beautiful eyes, and a bigger behind than most Thai women, but not overweight. We became close, very close. The massages were good with the usual enjoyable ending to the session, and the long chats during them got us bonding. After 4 or 5 visits of chatting and laughing, the sessions became more intense, with the 10th session becoming as intense as it could be. Fast forward 15 or so visits and I realised I'd fallen in love with Da. I went away on a European holiday with friends, during which we had quite a remarkable phone aerobics. After the phone bill had been abused, she began to cry, admitting she was married with her husband away for work fairly regularly. Understanding the hypocrisy of any criticism, I adopted to the situation. Last autumn, 2 friends who are cousins were organising a short 8-day trip to Pattaya and told me to get permission, and I'd be coming too. I got said permission from my wife for my first trip to Thailand and told Da of our plans. She was furious. I was going to Pattaya as apparently that's where all the wrong girls worked. Da being a Bangkok lady. After a long chat where I promised I'd behave, things calmed down and continued as they were until Christmas last year when I went cold turkey and stopped seeing Da. I was getting in far too deep and I could see she was confused with her feelings for 2 men. It was a sad time, but necessary. I always paid for my massages with Da and tipped accordingly, although a birthday visit had been on the house. The time for the trip to Pattaya arrived, but the 2 cousins had a significant bereavement and could no longer go. I had no doubt about going and told my wife I was still going as it was on my bucket list. It's probably here I should mention my wife goes back to Canada every year to see friends, so there is a balance of holidaying abroad separately as well as family holidays. I arrived in Bangkok and found the taxi waiting that I had previously booked to Pattaya. The same journey, as other viewers have described numerous times, doesn't need repeating. Tired but eager, bag unpacked, a beer in the shower, and out for around 4 p.m. local time, although I had decided the first night would be more of a drinking session, finding my bearings and enjoying the atmosphere. I thought I'd get a massage and some relief first. I must have picked up one of the few legit massage shops in Pattaya. Pyjama trousers on, curtain drawn, a room set up for multiple massages. I was expecting the wandering hand treatment, but nothing. So no relief, but it was a good massage from a very strong lady. First bar of the evening, I sat with an Australian guy and asked if I could buy him a beer, and in return he'd tell me what's what. A good friendly chat with a few beers exchanged, and I picked up some great tips. Same again in the next bar with a Dutch guy. With some good local knowledge gained, I walked around town having a few more beers before deciding to check out a go-go bar. Once inside, I realised it wasn't really for me. I prefer something more personal. I stood at the bar and mentioned to whom I realised was a mama-san that the girls looked a bit grumpy. She shouted over and suddenly they were all smiling, so I bought her a drink for that. Now, very drunk, I wandered and eventually ended up in a quieter beer bar where the girls were a little older and not pulling customers in. I approached a lady sitting on her own and asked if I could buy her a drink. Could she explain bar fines, lady drink prices and short time costs? I was slurring and apologised for being drunk, and she laughed and patted my cheek. I thanked her and left realising I needed sleep. As I looked back, she was watching me and smiled. I walked away, thought about it, turned around and went back. I told her I wanted her company and she took my hand and walked me to my hotel. Showers and aerobics followed immediately. I walked her back grinning like an idiot. On the way back, I got completely lost and wandered for 2 hours. A ladyboy grabbed me and I threw some loose notes just to get away. A motorbike taxi laughed and pointed to my hotel 30 metres away. The next day, I went to a bar for food and beers. I wanted to see the same girl again, but couldn't remember the bar. Eventually, another group of girls helped me identify her name and location, and I found the bar again. No leck at first, but then she appeared. Drinks flowed, mistakes were made, and I ended up back at the hotel again. More showers, more aerobics. The following days repeated in similar fashion. I spent too much money, saw very little of the city, and broke all the rules. I knew. By the end, she was actually stopping me spending too much and buying me small things. She cared in small ways that pull you in. The final night, we stayed together using up the last of the protection, each time followed by another shower. We exchanged details and I left feeling attached. Back home, we've been chatting and I've had the usual messages about taking her out of the bar and going home. I've also had genuine conversations and video calls. I know I've caught feelings, so I'm balancing it by watching warning videos. Dar also messaged asking about my trip, and I've told her I met someone but would still visit. I know I've been selfish, greedy, and an idiot on my first trip, but by God, it was fantastic. So, something I just wanted to mention very quickly at the end of that story there. A lot of times when I read these stories out, or I put up the video, anybody can come in and leave a comment about the story, any one of these stories. And I get a lot of comments from guys who kind of say things like, oh, he was a simp, he was a mug, oh, they seen him coming, all this sort of stuff. But I tend to think those guys have probably never been to Thailand, or if they have, they've got some kind of an ego, because it's very, very easy for guys they can be clever, but just not streetwise. And as I've said many times, the bar girls are very, very good at what they do. They're very convincing. And it's very easy for these guys to get pulled in thinking the girl's got genuine feelings. And, these guys who leave those sort of comments, as I say, that they're probably a little bit obnoxious themselves. Right, let's jump into story number 3. This is a story of a vacation romance I had on my first trip to Thailand. I'm from America and I was 23 at the time. This was in August 2024. I had some free time as I was laid off when the company I worked for went bankrupt. I decided to take a 1-month trip to Asia, and the first stop was going to be 1 week in Bangkok. This was my first international trip. I landed around 3 a.m. on a Tuesday as my flight to Thailand was delayed a few hours. The first 2 days I was recovering from jet lag and doing normal tourist stuff like visiting temples and sightseeing. I do enjoy partying, but did not really do any until Thursday. I went to some clubs in the RCA area, but there were not many people out, and the type of clubs were just not my style. No one was really dancing or looking like they were having fun. It was probably around midnight and it still was not picking up. I was considering calling it a night, but I decided to take a taxi over to Khao San Road. Khao San was a lot more lively than RCA. It did not take long to find a bar that had a lot of people dancing and having a good time. I was enjoying it, dancing and trying to work my way towards the bar as it was pretty crowded. Before I got to the bar, I locked eyes with this drop-dead gorgeous Thai woman. She had a perfect body, super slim, and had a great smile. I was getting closer to her, and I wanted to dance with her, but there was this guy very close to her that at first seemed like she was with him, so I was hesitant to make a move. Eventually, she grabbed my hand and we started dancing. I was taking it slow with making any other moves while we were dancing, as this guy was hovering near us and looking very annoyed at me. I was not quite sure if she came with him or not, and I was trying to avoid getting into a fight. She eventually put my hand on her chest while we were dancing, and we started kissing. The guy eventually had enough and left the bar. We were having an amazing time just dancing, kissing, and feeling each other up. About 10 minutes after we started dancing, a bar employee came by and took our order, and we got some beers. After we got the beers, we stepped outside of the bar and talked and followed each other on Instagram. Her name was May. I asked May what was going on with the guy from earlier. She told me she met him earlier, but he would not leave her alone. She said she was glad he left after we started dancing. We went back into the bar and continued what we were doing. May introduced me to a European friend group she was friendly with, and they seemed cool at first. Every now and then, May would go and talk with one of the girls in that group. At this point, it had been about an hour since I'd met May. Eventually, while we were dancing, one of the girls grabbed May's hand and pulled her away. I did not think much of it at first, but shortly after that, one of the girls slapped me hard on the chest and said I could not dance with May as she was too drunk, and they took her out of the bar. I was shocked. We were both pretty drunk, but she was enthusiastic and had initiated most of what we were doing. I did not say anything as I knew arguing would not help and would just cause a scene. The whole bar looked at me for about 10 seconds before going back to normal. I went to the bathroom, and when I came out, I tried to enjoy myself, but the mood had gone, so I decided to call it a night. I got back to my hotel around 2:30 a.m. I was not sure what May thought about me, so I planned to message her to check she got home safely. I saw I was still following her on Instagram, so at least she had not blocked me. She had posted some videos on her stories, including one of us dancing. The last story was a picture of the group that took her away with text in Thai. I translated it, and it was basically her insulting them, telling them to go back to their own country and to mind their own business. That made me feel better. Shortly after, she messaged me asking how I was. We ended up video calling, and she apologized and said she did not want to leave, but they forced her. We agreed to meet the next evening. We met at Siam Centre, got dinner and watched a movie. I realized her English was not as good as I first thought. About 50% understanding, so we used Google Translate at times. She told me she was 21 and from Udon, Ratchathani, and visiting Bangkok for the weekend. After the movie, we went to Khao Sun Road again, drank heavily, bar hopping and dancing. Around 4 a.m. we left, got a tuk-tuk back to my hotel, stopping at 7-Eleven for some supplies. On the walk back, I realised I had lost my phone, likely left in the tuk-tuk. I used my backup phone to try and locate it, but it had been turned off. I put it into lost mode and accepted it was probably gone. Back at the hotel, we started kissing and messing around, but when I tried to take things further, she stopped me and said she did not want to have full-on aerobics. Instead, she took her top off and gave me a special service, which I cannot mention here because YouTube might take this video down, but I'm sure that you can read between the lines. We woke around noon, ate food from 7-Eleven and later went for drinks on Sukhumvit Road. An older American couple spoke to us and thought we were a couple, which we laughed about. May then left to see her uncle, but agreed to meet later. That evening, we met at Asiatique, ate, drank, and later went back to Khao Sun to party again. We swapped necklaces, which felt meaningful at the time. Around 4 a.m., we went back to my hotel. While getting intimate, she told me she had something to say and revealed she was a ladyboy. I was surprised but not upset. She was very feminine, and I had not suspected it. I told her I did not mind, and we went ahead. It was a new experience for me and a bit strange at first, but I adjusted quickly and we ended up having a good time. The next day, we went to Jakajak Market, kept things more relaxed, than later went out again despite earlier plans not to. She asked to stay another day and I booked her a new flight as it was cheap. We spent the next day mostly resting, joking around and enjoying each other's company. She made some funny comments about my stomach and calling me a monkey, which in her accent was hilarious. We eventually went out for food and drinks before returning to the hotel. Then the next morning I walked her to the BTS and we said our goodbyes. Both a bit emotional. That was also my last day in Thailand before flying to South Korea. I regretted not staying longer. I originally wrote this story in July 2025, but only sent it in March 2026. Since then, I returned to Thailand in February 2026 and met May again in Phuket and travelled around together, included Phi Phi Island and Kanchanaburi. That trip was good, but not as perfect as the first time. I'm writing that story as well and will send it over once done. I hope you enjoyed this story and it was not too long. I think it is interesting with a few twists and a better ending than most. I was not robbed, still have all my organs, did not get dragged into any money scams, and I did not see her again. Okay, so congratulations to him. Look, I don't judge people. You know, if he fell for a ladyboy and they both had a good time, as long as they didn't hurt anybody, there's no harm done. And I'm sure I'll get a few comments on this one, but as I said, no harm done. Right, now I'm going to jump into the fourth. This is our final story today. And as I said at the beginning of the upload today, I did read this story out in 2021, okay? This is a story about my first night in Thailand. It was Christmas Eve 2019 in Chiang Mai. I checked into an Airbnb that I had booked up online for my Thailand trip. At around 9 p.m, I left my Airbnb and headed down to the old town in Chiang Mai. I was heading towards a bar complex I had found on Google Maps. Walking through the streets of the old town was great. The buildings reminded me of Japan. I arrived at a beer bar complex at around 11 p.m. and I went into one of the bars. It was packed on this night and all the girls were wearing Santa costumes along with quite a few young Western customers. A few beers later, and as I was eyeing the crowd for a girl to introduce myself to, an absolutely stunning girl in a gold dress joined the crowd. She looked beautiful, very innocent looking. The dress was conservative, showed no cleavage and not too short. This was exactly what I was looking for. However, she was surrounded by 6 of her other friends who were dancing together in a group. They were all enjoying themselves, but they seemed not to be interested by any of the guys in the bar. Now, I should tell you that I have never introduced myself to a Thai girl before. I've always met girls through Tinder and other online apps. Furthermore, I dance like a 5-legged donkey and I'm a little shy. I don't really like the company of a large group. The idea of approaching a group of 6 or 7 girls who are minding their own business and trying to strike up a conversation with one of them was just too daunting for me, and I just could not get up the nerve to say hello. A little later, when the bar closed and I left disappointed, I eventually found myself entering another nightclub. Inside was completely packed and I could barely move. Anyway, I saw a girl standing nearby. She wasn't a stunner, but she was pretty. Nowhere near as beautiful as a girl in the gold dress, but nice. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. I went over to the girl and just said hi. She said hi back to me, and we began chatting. I quickly became aware that she was very happy with lots of physical contact. Clearly, this was a girl who was used to being picked up by Western guys. She certainly wasn't shy, that's for sure. As time passed, she insisted that I buy her and her friends a few rounds of drinks, which I happily did as I was on holiday and I didn't mind spending money. A little later, the 3 of us leave the club, which had been very dark inside, and to my dismay, as we got outside under the street lights, I see that my pretty girl has more facial hair than me. It goes without saying that I was very disappointed, but as I was very drunk by now and quite tired, I wasn't in the mood to find another girl, so I decided to stick with this one. The friend then drove the 3 of us on her scooter to get some food and some more drinks, which I paid for, of course. After we were finished eating, the friend then drove me back to my Airbnb, where I was in for more disappointment. This girl decided that she didn't want to stay with me and just drove off with her friend. Which leads me into my next mistake, which was not accepting the night had been lost and I should have called it a night. One more thing that I should add at this point in the story is that I very rarely drink, and at this point I was the most drunk that I'd ever been for years. So you can guess that the mistakes are going to be coming thick and fast. I decided to get a taxi and told him to take me to a place where I could get a girl. The driver promptly took me to a karaoke venue on the outskirts of town. No doubt he received a fat commission for delivering a drunk foreigner to the venue. I stumbled inside and was led to a room where I could choose a girl to join me. They asked me if I wanted something to drink and a snack. I said yes. They promptly brought in several drinks and plates of food without even asking me what I wanted or giving me a menu. I wasn't really enjoying the place. I just wanted to take the girl back to my place. So after about 30 minutes, I asked for the bill, which was brought to me by a man who placed the bill on the table and then stood guarding the door so that I could not leave. At this point, even my drunk brain knew something was wrong. Sure enough, I looked at the bill and it was for 20,000 baht, about £500. I knew that I'd been scammed. £500 for a few drinks and some snacks. Now, here comes my biggest mistake. I picked up the bill, threw it on the floor, walked over to the Thai man guarding the door, threw him across the room and opened the door. Whereupon I was charged by about 6 to 8 Thai men who easily pushed me to the floor, kicking and punching me while I was down. Even the girl that I had been sitting with joined in, stomping on me. It's interesting to note that wherever you are in the world, when men fight, there is an unwritten rule not to hit each other in the privates. Women, however, don't seem to have this inhibition, and it became clear that this girl was making it her intention to prevent me from having any biological children in the future. Luckily for me, Thais are very small and light, and I am used to playing rugby with men twice their size and getting battered and bruised. Their punching and kicking didn't do much damage, and I was able to dodge the girls stomping and keep my bits intact. Surprisingly, at this point, I made a good decision. I apologised and I paid the bill. The Thais went back to being calm very quickly after this, like nothing had happened. I guess they are used to getting payment by force. Anyway, I made my way back outside and took a tuk-tuk back to my Airbnb, where I made my final mistake of the night. I wasn't carrying any small banknotes. I only had a 1,000 baht note left, and surprise, surprise, the tuk-tuk driver didn't have any change. I guess I should have gotten the driver to take me to a 7-Eleven where I could buy something and get change, but I just wanted the night to come to an end. So I gave him the 1,000 baht note and went to bed. This was a very disappointing, painful, expensive first night in Thailand, but at least I learned a lot from it, and I hope your viewers will too. So this is quite a common scam that goes on in these venues where you hire a room, or not hire the room, but you take a room with a couple of girls, do a bit of singing, and they bring food and, like this guy said, food and drinks, and you don't get itemized bills, and you don't see a menu, and then you kind of get bullied to pay the bill. You always have some heavies, who want to force you to pay that bill. So be very, very careful with that one. All right, that's it once again for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the 4 stories. If you've stumbled upon my channel by accident and you enjoyed this story, why not consider giving me a thumbs up? It helps the YouTube algorithm push the video to more people, and you could even subscribe if you like, because I do, as I said at the beginning, I read these stories out every Saturday morning, and it'd be great to have you on board, as they say. Right, thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you with some more stories next Saturday.